This is part of my journey, episode 11. I was saying that Jamie Kimbrough had on the last show with someone that I'd met in person because I've been out to see him, and obviously I've met both of you in person, so it's nice to sort of see. Well, I haven't seen you in person for a while. I think last time was over in Brighton, wasn't it? Was it where we went to Rare Kind, maybe? I know, the DJ, the brew house.
Yeah. You came over to our Friday night residency over in Arundel at the brew house project.
Yeah,
and, it was lovely to see you, pal.
Yeah, no, that was good. Thanks. And I hear you had another chap, Benny, came and played this Friday, I think, wasn't it?
He did, yeah. He's another 45 king. So thanks to the power of your community, we hooked up, and he covered for me actually last Friday whilst I went out for my old man's birthday. So he's a great guy, really into his funky disco, and sort of verging into house. So it added a nice dynamic to the sort of stuff that we normally play.
Yeah, I was going to say slightly different. Yeah, that was a connection through Constance K, who's one of the 45 Queens, who's DJ'd, and they mentioned that they had this friend in Worthing, and then I just got chatting to him, and then I think I sort of said, "Oh, get it together, guys," and the power of online communities.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Dan, let's start with you, Dan. So tell us who you are and a little bit about Dad La Soul.
Oh, put me on the spot then. Right. So I'm Dan Flanagan. I was going to say 46 and a half. That is actually a lie because I recently turned 47. I have a lot of ailments. And about 5 years ago, I set up a non-profit organisation called Dad La Soul, which is a revolutionary grassroots movement that helps dads battle social isolation. And we do that through a number of ways, primarily play dates through dads and kids, because I think we've all been there with young children, going to mother and baby groups and not feeling welcome, or not being able to because we're working too much, or having custody issues. There's the whole generation of dads that have basically been ignored. So yeah, it's good fun. It's hard work, but we get to meet some remarkable people. So, for example, we just launched our play dates over in Chichester this weekend, just gone. Yeah. And it wasn't a huge turnout. I think there was about 10 of us all in all, but there was one dad that came along and his son was in a wheelchair and he was non-verbal, but we were doing Nerf wars, sort of dads versus kids. And so to have the complete accessibility of that, it's just like, yeah, man, this is right. I don't need hundreds of people. You need a few people having a real connection, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a lot. Sometimes people say, "Oh, the more is merrier," but often it's better to have that sort of quality time with a few people where you can actually sort of have a proper connection. And how long have you been doing Dad La Soul for?
It was last week. It was our 4th birthday.
Wow.
For 4 years since I did the very first event, and it just came to when I moved over to Worthing from Brighton. I didn't know anybody, and I'd go to the park and swimming and stuff with my young son, and it's bloody lonely, and you feel a bit of a Billy No Mates to put your hand and go, hello, I'd kind of like some pals, and does somebody want to come and play? When we were kids, you'd walk down the park and just go, who wants to play army? And you'd have a group of friends. You can't do that you can do that as a middle-aged man, I suppose, but you'd probably get a few strange looks. So yeah, it's through the Simon has done DJ workshops for us. We've done Nerf wars, we've done stand-up comedy workshops, Lego, soft play. Dads and kids get together, and then through that, the friendships are made, and then we have a very open forum for conversations, because typically as men, we don't have deeper conversations. That's why things like this are so powerful.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned social isolation. So that was almost before even COVID was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How has it impacted? Because obviously during COVID you haven't been able to do a huge amount in terms of meeting up. So I think you're talking about sort of doing stuff online. So Zoom.
Yeah, we did. COVID nearly killed us, to be honest. Financially, spiritually, emotionally, we couldn't be in the same room together, and that's when the dark times, when people actually really need each other. So we did, which pretty much everybody did. We went on to Zoom for the first few weeks and had some great successes there. We did one event actually. It was the world's first international play date. So we had dads from the States and Kenya and Germany taking part, which was lovely. But then, when people realised this horrible lockdown thing just weren't going away, and you spent your entire week on Zoom, you're not going to do it on a Saturday morning. So it died. So it was a challenge, and getting funding is a challenge because we're a non-profit organisation. I have this rule where we charge a very minimal amount for our traffic's there. Minimal amount for the play dates, but I don't want a dad or a child never to be able to afford one.
Right.
I'm from the 70s where they had the free school meal table, and you could clearly see that social divide, and it shouldn't be, because we're all men, we're all dads, and it doesn't matter if you're on 60 grand a week or 60 quid a week. At 3 o'clock in the morning when your baby's been teething and all they want is a mum, you feel like a failure. So I want to just bring everybody together, and that's what we're kind of doing.
And you mentioned obviously that it almost killed you and things stopped. So how did that impact on you? As the founder of this, and thinking that your business or what you built up over the last few years might potentially go down the drain. How did you?
It was horrible. It was horrible. Generally, I was very fortunate that when lockdown started, my background's in PR and marketing, so I've always been able to, earn a few quid. So I went and got a job, and then for a few months, let some other people take over for a while. That went okay, but the fact that we could never be together in the same room, there was, we just lost that emotional connection. And then it pretty much, I think, a few weeks before Christmas, I lost about 95% of the team through different reasons.
Right.
So that was 6 people went in the space of 2 weeks. Everybody, I understand, because people have got their own commitments, they've got families, and if lockdowns were difficult. And I had a pretty dark time, to be honest, because I'd put in 4 years, and before Dad La Soul there was Top Rocking Beats, which was our afternoon raves. That I'd been pretty much working on full time, evenings, weekends, and then to find out that he was potentially going to die. But then I put the flag out. I've got a very, very supportive partner. I reached out to some strategy people that I know, and they were able to. I took 3 days off over Christmas just to try and get my head together, and then got to work on Dad La Soul and realised that this can't be the end of it. And it's rebuilt, so there's a brand new team there. Financially, we're in a much better position than we've ever been. From a funding point of view, we've got new members, new clubs started, and I feel really positive. I think you have to hit those. It's that hero's journey, isn't it? You've got the highs, and then you have those crashing lows where. I remember one particular moment. I was in the shower in the morning, and I hadn't been sleeping for weeks, and I think this isn't worth it. This just isn't worth it. And then. The concept of social collateral. So it's not about cash, but we'll get a message from a dad that's been helped, or the community have rallied round and helped. And you hear that, you go, no, this is the reason why I'm not happy, but this is why I put up with this shit, because that man needed us, and without it, that brother would be on their own. So it's very exciting. It's a struggle because I've got a full-time job, and then trying to do this in the evening and weekends and be a co-parent. But it's all for big and better cause. There is genuinely, there's such a desperate need for us as men to be able to communicate well, be able simply just to have some powers. And we get older, our social lives shrink, our social groups shrink. We tend to, as we've just done for the last 18 months, just see people online or on Facebook. but there's nothing like a real human connection.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's definitely sort of parallels with what we're doing with the sort of 45 Kings and 45 Down, all the rest of it, and this whole show came about from what Paul Double P telling me about some issues that he was going through and talking about them, and I said, well, do you want to talk about it? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. And then we started, and then once you get one person talking, then someone else does. But it's like you say, if you can help one person with what you do, it's worthwhile. And it's interesting now that one of our DJ friends is struggling a bit, and people have sort of rallied around and trying to give support and trying to look out for him, and hopefully he's going to be all right. But it's difficult, and it's not about the money, it's not about anything else. It's just about being here and being supportive. And I think, like you say, certainly in these days and times of COVID, where we can't really see anyone, it's so important. So
I think you just need to be able to listen. The problem we have as men is we tend to want to fix things. Yeah. And I have a massive issue with that. If I hear a problem, go, right, we're going to see a minute. And actually, sometimes you just need to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And just listen. Just tell me. It's fine. I can't fix it, but I can listen. And that's a skill that I'm actively trying to work on. I think more people should as well.
I think it gets easier with age, and as you grow older, and I think certainly having kids or a kid helps as well. But I get it with my wife. Something she's telling me something, I'm like, oh, why don't you do this? She's like, I'm not asking you to give me an answer or tell me what to do. Just listen. All right, okay, all right, fine. And again, obviously, it's sort of improving. But yeah, listening definitely, and being prepared to talk. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Being prepared to call out if someone if you need some help or go from there. So,
but don't you find it's a thing where if one or two people start doing it, then everybody else will open up. I've got my day job. I work for a business consultancy, and we are I think we've been in the same room once. Some of the team, because they're spread all over, and we had a team meeting that we have every Tuesday. And I said, let's just flip it. Let's just talk, and then. Yeah. This is just weird. I'll do this in Untitled Chapter, but I won't do this during my day job. I did, and I ended up learning a lot more about people and about their family situations, and the thing that that's why you're a grumpy bugger. Right now, I get that. That's why that is a trigger point, or you're a pain in the arse on Tuesdays because of that. And you don't get those sort of understanding.
No, and I think as men, we bottle a lot up. I think it's only now acceptable, and certainly, talking on this show and what I've been through the last sort of year and a half, it's I don't think I would have opened up as much as I have done in the last year, and it's helpful for everyone. It's helpful for your families and helpful for people and that. So we're moving hopefully into a different world, and
isn't it a good example to set the kids though? I've cried in front of my son, and I never saw my dad cry. Just wouldn't have. I would have been a pansy, and things like. And I'm thinking, great, if we can build more emotionally secure children, then everybody's going to benefit, surely.
Yeah, and we were talking about this on I think the show we had with Rich Wilson. He was talking about how his dad, who's like I think almost 80, had opened up for the first time and talked about stuff, and even at that sort of generation now. Are starting to open up, and it's talking to my daughter, and I'm sure you talk about your kids about mental health, and they're learning about it at school, and it's so important, so that hopefully things are different, because they've got their own massive issues to deal with in online and online bullying and all sorts of things that are going on at the moment. But we'll come back to you in a minute, Dan, but that's cool. So Simon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Well, I'm Simon Cannon, DJ Simon C, from the Get It Together crew. So I'm a vinyl DJ. I've been DJing now for 25 years. So first and foremost, primarily, I'm a hip hop lover. And as I've become older and more open-minded, I've realised that there are other musical forms, and not this. So I was strictly a hip hop White Label 12 playing DJ when I first started.
Right.
And it was a real moment for me when I realised that the music that I loved came from original sources. It really rocked me, to be perfectly honest. So I DJ with two good friends, Tris and Dave, both of whom are long-time collaborators with Dan as part of Dan the Soul, and indeed with Criztoz as part of the excellent 45 Kings group.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, for me, the DJing is one part of my profile. I guess the other part, the day job, or 4/5 of my working week, I work for a charity, Aspens. They're an autism charity, and I work as a behaviour specialist. So it's my job to work with families and young people and children with autism. So I carry out behaviour assessments. I support families at time of crisis, and some of the best work that I do is working directly with young people with autism or ADHD, or a combination of the two. And I suppose that work came about because I'm also a qualified teacher. I'm a former head teacher. And after 20 years in education, I realised I'd had enough, and experienced a bit of an existential crisis, I would say, about 18 months or so ago, and realised that whilst I loved the school, loved the job, I'd fallen out of love with education per se. But I suppose after a period of reflection, I got involved with some coaching. I spoke to a life coach. So your themes from earlier, Dan, sort of resonated with me, the importance of speaking up, because it would be fair to say that I felt myself begin to deteriorate, and I knew that I wasn't the husband I wanted to be, or the father that I wanted to be, and something had to change, because I felt I was at a tipping point. So I know it sounds a bit middle class, going to see a life coach, and I suppose I was quite privileged and in a fortunate enough position to be able to afford to see a life coach back then. But it was transformative, I have to say. What I worked out was that whilst mainstream education wasn't for me, what was a passion of mine was inclusion and supporting families when they were at their lowest ebb. And so I found a role now where I'm able to do that, which is just wonderful. So I'm on the road. I visit schools, I visit families in their homes, centres, and the young people that I work with are inspiring. And I've been lucky to be able to channel a number of my passions and enthusiasm into the work that I do, because we look for creative solutions to help those young people meet their goals. So that's me in a nutshell. I've got 2 children. My son Stan is just he's just started in year 6. My daughter Flora is in year 2. I'm married. My wife's a teacher. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's cool. There's a few points I'll pick up on there and ask you about. I'm just going to say a quick hello to a few people in the chat. We've got Armand's Melkis, big up. DJ D-Sync, Funky Flavors, Mark Lancaster, and we've got Dave.
Dave's in it.
Dave's in there as well.
Yeah.
Big up, Dave. Hope you're well, mate. From Getting It Together as well. Okay, yeah, so it's a life coach. Tell me about that. I mean, I've never been to a life coach. I've obviously read about them.
I have, and it was transformative. Everything you were saying yes, just yes, and just yes. Carry on.
Well, let's go, Simon. Let's go with your experience with your life coach, and sort of what what it involves. How it works. And Dan, you can tell us about your experience.
Yeah.
We might have seen the same coach.
Did I recommend Kate to you?
Did you go together?
I saw Kate before I was involved with you lot. So, but I realised that you'd recommended her to somebody in the Dad La Soul community. So I thought, Yeah, she
Yeah, fabulous lady.
Tell us about Kate and what going to see a life coach is like. I'm quite intrigued.
Well, really, I mean, one of her strap lines is helping you sort of get out of the muddle that you find yourself in, and muddle is a really gentle adjective to describe how I was feeling at that time. But so I met Kate with a degree of trepidation. I was ahead at that point. I was in a position of relative power, used to doing the talking and giving the orders, and not very good at listening, it would be fair to say. So it was quite something, but I knew I needed to do. I knew I needed to do something. So Kate spent time unpicking the reasons as to why I was there, and I explained. At that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it was there was work around exploring my interests, my hobbies, my passions, a little bit about my history. So it's not therapeutic, it's not psychotherapy, but Kate is a skilled mindfulness practitioner as well. So she was also really, really supportive in helping me sort my sleep out at the time, and just building in opportunities during the day to embed mindfulness. And her impact on me and therein my family as well was immediate and significant. She's warm, gregarious, funny, but also as well robust, and she gave very good practical advice. And I think the skill of a coach is being able to tease from you solutions and goals without you realizing that you're doing it, and that's what she did with me, and that's how we realized that sort of that pursuit of a role that encapsulates my passion for inclusion. That's how it began, and then we basically decided on an endpoint, and then with Kate it was about taking those steps backwards. And so we knew where we wanted to get to, but there was Nirvana was identified, and it was then about planning the steps and how we get there. So it was revolutionary.
And I guess it all feeds into mental health as well, because obviously, like you say, if you get out of that muggle of what you're thinking, then that helps you clear your head and be able to sort of focus on what you want to achieve, and more importantly, probably how you want to achieve it, and go from there. And is it a session, a number of sessions you went to see her, or was it just one?
No, it was over a series of weeks. She supported me with my CV. She supported me with sort of practical skills, interview technique. I mean, as a teacher, I'd only ever had teaching interviews, and they're very different from sort of interviews in the real world, as it were. I'd never had to write a CV before, because you don't have to do it as a teacher. So all of those things I was unsure about. And she gave me very, very robust feedback on my personal statement, and she actually said, "You sound a bit of a tosser, Simon." and actually, from Kate, it was absolutely beautifully pitched and at the right time. I was feeling a little bit better about myself at that point, of course, and in a position to be able to take feedback of that sort of brutal nature. But it was amazing, I have to say.
It's
very interesting. And Dan, so you're, I don't know, similar? Or
very, very similar. I about 7 years ago, I was in the corporate world, working for a large media agency. Everything on paper was well, but actually with me, it really wasn't. I was really tired. I was grumpy. I was stressed. I didn't like the work. I was proud of the work I was doing, but it was for the wrong people. I was working for very large, like banks and stuff like that, and I'd massively sold out. and I had some issues around my dad passed away, and I did a typical man thing, not talking, but just getting on it, just carry on with work, and that came back to bite me on the bum considerably a few months down the line, where I came about this close to breaking. And then, but fortunately, my ex-wife convinced me to quit that job, and it was savouring. The idea was I'd have a couple of months off just to get well, work out what the next step was, because it was mad to leave a really good job and something I've been working for years to do. People said you just don't do that sort of thing, but I knew I had to get out.
It's a big step, isn't it? And it's a big change.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I felt so guilty. And then, a couple of days into it, I was thinking, right, I've got to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I was all over the place. And I happened upon the lovely Kate Tilston, the life coach. And I thought, I don't do life. That's just namby-pamby nonsense. And I went to see her. And very robust, very down to earth. And she's got this beautiful habit where she chopped the top of my head off, get all the stuff out there. I have spaghetti head, as she called it. So many ideas, and almost overload. I had something to prove, I think, at the time. And we just worked there. I'd go and have a coffee with her once a week. We'd get the notepads out, felt tips, and then I'd just pour my heart out, pour my head out to go, right, that's Monday, that's Tuesday, that's Wednesday. She helped me create my my startup digital agency. She gave me the confidence. I had the idea to create Top Rocking Beats. So for some of the viewers, these were large-scale afternoon raves for young families.
Yeah,
I took her the idea, but had no real experience of doing it. And she, if I'm Rocky, she was Mickey, but a much better-looking version of Mickey in my corner. Absolutely transformational. I think I worked with her for probably about well over a year.
Okay.
She helped me through so many different times, and she was just there cheering me on.
And how did you get involved with her? Because I mean, obviously going through what you said, as opposed to, for example, going to see a GP or going to see therapy. What was it in particular that led you to a life coach?
I just, I think again, it was my ex-wife. She was very supportive at the time. She said, "You need to get you're almost hyperactive."
Right.
Because suddenly I'd had this time off, and in retrospect, I should have rested in that time. But I didn't, because I'm a man and I have to work.
It's very difficult to rest as a man, isn't it?
Yeah, but I did have some remarkable moments that I knew I was on the right time. So I think I finished on the Thursday, and about a week or so later, my son started nursery. So I was there for his first day at nursery. And then they put a call out for volunteers, because we're very fortunate to live by the beach. They do beach school where they take the little kids down to the beach.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd love to do that. And I said, well, we don't really have many dads that do this sort of thing. So yeah, but I really want to. And I took my son, obviously we had some proper grown-ups that took us as well. We all went down to the beach together, and it was a Monday morning, and I was with these 3 and 4 year olds dinosaur hunting on the beach. I'm thinking, a week or two ago, I would have been in a status meeting for Barclaycard being shouted at, right? Yeah. Because some stockbroker prick hasn't got this. Sorry, my language, but it's that is not important. I just don't care. This important to see these moments and thinking, whatever I'm doing, this is right, because it gives me the chance to have moments like this. Even if I have to work in the evenings, I don't want to ever go back really to a 9 to 5 again. I was a second-hand viewer of my son's life, because I'd leave so early in the morning, get back very late at night when I was working, and it's a very common story for quite a lot of dads. We miss out so much.
It was exactly the same for me, Dan. Exactly the same for me, and that was the primary reason why I spoke to a friend who recommended Kate, because like you, I was out the door before the kids were awake, and then back at bath time if I was lucky. And ironically, in my role then, I spent a great deal of time talking to parents in in sessions where I used to talk to them about the importance of parenting and being a presence for your children, and you know,
that's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah,
in a bitter way.
Irony, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was very jealous because I was at a school in Horsham, so there were a number of dads on the playground dropping their kids off, picking them up, and working flexibly. And I was very jealous of those dads, I have to say. And I thought, you know, here I am in a position where I'm, you know, they're coming to see me as being the person at the top of the tree, if you like, and I'm giving this advice, but it was totally inauthentic because that wasn't what I was doing, and actually I felt sort of fraudulent and insincere, and actually over time that eats away at you, and I suppose one of the benefits of the role that I was in is that I could see the impact of that type of approach on kids that were in school. And I thought to myself, actually, you know, I need to take a step back now and readdress this and make some quite major adjustments. And I think going back to your question earlier, Dan Criztoz, I think I didn't feel that I had a mental health problem then. I didn't feel that this was a medical issue, and if anything, I had issues because I thought the way that I was feeling was a little self-indulgent and just you know, and just sort of, and so I suppose wrongly I went into life coaching thinking that this may be a bit soft touch, and actually it was the complete opposite, and it was exactly the right treatment for what I was feeling at that particular time. I don't know if you felt that way, Dan, about it at all, or whether or not you're.
No, it was absolutely. There was something I wrote actually on my last day at this corporate job, and I wrote a post on the blog, and it was going to be something like how I quit my job. I'm going to start a revolution from my bed, and it was about the fact that they say the worst possible job in the world is a rat catcher in Mumbai, right?
Yeah,
and that's the sort of lowest level. And then I was thinking, right, here you are in these swanky offices doing this cool creative job. You self-indulgent for wanting to leave this. Why don't you just shut up and get on with it? Because so many people would give their right nut to be in your position. You are, so there was a guilt and the selfishness and all those sort of stuff. It was a big weight on my shoulders, but without thinking, you deserve to be happy. And I thought, actually, if I'm happy, you know, the people around me are going to benefit. And that's got to be the deciding factor.
I think it's also as men, and we talked about this before on the show, it's like we're sort of told to feel like, you know, man up, or, you know, don't worry about this, or, you know, you're there to support your partner, or whatever. And you know, there's stuff going on in your head, and it's only when you get it out and start to speak to someone else, you know, they're either going to say to you, you know what, you're an idiot, you know, you're talking rubbish, or that, or they're going to say, you know what you're thinking is valid, and, you know, you need to speak to someone about it, or you need to do something about it. And you know, you have to be happy if you can, because it does impact on everyone else, like you say. I'm just going to drop a comment in. Big shout out to Funky Flavors. He's coming on the next show, I believe, in October. But he says, have to say, without COVID and working from home, I would have missed so much time. Seeing my daughter more has been a privilege. And, you know, if nothing else, from COVID, you know, a lot of good stuff and a lot of bad stuff and a lot of tragedies come out of it. But I think it has allowed, hopefully, most parents to spend a bit more time with their family, or probably a lot more time with their families. And that's got to be a good thing. You know, I think, you know, I know that a lot of kids have missed a lot of time at school, and, you know, missed a lot of time seeing their friends. But I think this is a chunk of time that we've hopefully been able to spend time with our families, or our kids, which
I think there was for the first few days of when lockdown started, I had my son till 3 days a week, so I tried to be a good parent, and I worked out a timetable for him, and that couple of hours into it just went to pot. It's just like, little Jimmy will not be doing Latin 9:30 to 10:30. That ain't happening. But what it did, it sparked out completely different conversation. So we went through a session of him going through my records, and I just pick whatever you want to. If it looks pitch, I'll tell you the story about how I brought it, and we'll listen to it. Or he picked up a book that basically he probably wouldn't have normally gone there, and he was sat on the sofa laughing. I'm on the other side of the sofa reading, and we're having conversations that we never would have normally had COVID not happened, and it almost that brought us much closer together.
It's been I mean, it definitely has added that. I mean, I wasn't, I was working, so I wasn't doing the homeschooling, but my wife was doing it. But again, like you say, after the first few weeks, the homeschooling was sort of out the window. But then they'd be like, okay, when we could travel, they'd go down to the beach and they'd go and look for fossils, or they'd go and do, and again, it was just those experiences. And, I can't remember how old your kids are, but I mean, like, he's 7 now, but it's probably, this is going to be the first thing, one of her first earliest memories that they're going to remember, 10 years down the line, because she's not going to remember much when she was 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And it's such a big chunk of their lives that they'll remember, and they'll be saying, oh, do you remember that time when we didn't have to go to school for like a year or whatever? And it's a shared experience that all these kids are going to have. And we got to spend it, I remember with my mum, I went and did this, with my dad, I went and did that. So I think it's the positives out of what has been a crazy situation. Dan, so we've talked about Dad Soul. Can you tell us a little bit more about the group? You've got a Facebook group, and Facebook group is important because we've got a 45 Kings group where we all sort of offer support. But just before that, I'm just going to read out from you. Interesting watching his colleagues wrestle with staff, allowing staff to work creatively. Presentism was hugely prevalent as part of profession. Okay, that's interesting stuff. But yeah, so we've got the 45 Kings group, and stuff's put on there. And for example, there's a chap in there who's not very well at the moment, and everyone's putting up their best wishes for him, sending their wishes to him. He's in hospital and all that stuff. But you've also got Dad the Soul, the Facebook group, which people can join, and I'll put the link up when I remember for a minute. If I find it, now I can do that. Hopefully that should come up. And that's been a great, I sort of dip in and out and have a look at stuff, I comment occasionally, but it's been a really good support network. So tell us a little bit about the Facebook group, and it was, well, we had I had the public facing Facebook group for the different brands and the events, and then somebody goes, actually, I want a conversation with some of the dads, but I don't want the mum to see it. Okay, that's fair enough. We're not going to, suddenly start dressing up as Batman and going protesting and stuff. This is not Fathers for Justice. So we set up the thing, and it's lovely. And the people, there's members from all over the world. We've got members in Budapest. We've got members in New Zealand. And this is a small thing that I created in a sleepy seaside town in the UK. And it's lovely, and it's just dads from all over, completely different backgrounds. Yes, it's primarily, my terrible jokes or flashbacks or nostalgia. I've got no qualm. My jokes are great, but a lot of people think they're terrible. Dad jokes, that's exactly what they are.
Exactly. But there's an open forum for people that just want to put their hand up and go this or that. And I'm very, very proud of it. Actually, it was... from a personal perspective, I separated a couple of years ago, and I remember just after we told my son that we are separating, I was in absolute pieces, and I put it on the group. I just needed to get some out there, and I went to a very dark place. And then somebody went and come and got me. And it was like out of this thing that I sort of created, and it's just grown organically. I have benefited personally in so many ways, and there's so many good stories of friendships being built. Or there was a lad that he wasn't working, and he was also a co-parent, and he had to have his daughter's 4th birthday party, and he was really worrying that he was going to be judged on it. And we gave him the toys, and one of our other dads, who was a circus performer, came in, performed, and he was able to rock it, and it was just like, this is a dad's arm, mate. Put your flag up. If you need us, we've got you. Whether that be for a terrible joke, whether that be for a pint, whether that be for a play date because you're sick of going to soft play on your own on a Saturday and looking at your mobile phone. And that's something I'm very, very proud of. There's some good people in there.
And I think it's, I think some of the things that I've really noticed is people will put things like, for example, my ex-partner is doing this, how do I deal with that? And some people put, I'm going through a court process, and, anyone got advice, or, are things going to get better? Things are in a difficult place at the moment. They've just separated with their partner, or they're going through a custody battle. Are things going to get better? And it's people sort of commenting and saying, I've been through that. It will get better. It will help you. Here's some ideas. And I think that's the support that's really there, because, like you say, you can go to a dark place and you think, it's not going to get better. And I think that's something that's really struck me. That people are there and willing to support each other, and I think as men that's something that we really need.
But isn't it just the the co-parenting struggles that it's I don't know, my child wants to change gender, for example, and okay, that's going to be you're going to have hopefully some honest conversation, but that's going to be some weird stuff for you to process. And I don't mean weird in a bad way. So actually that wasn't on somebody's maybe life plan, and they're coming to terms with it, or the child's sexuality is burgeoning, and I don't know how I feel about that, and that's okay. And to be able to put it out there, I don't want stones thrown at me, but this is new to me, and I think that's where it is really, really encouraging and really nurturing.
And it's again, it's coming back to stuff we've talked about here and Twitch. You created a safe space. You've created somewhere where people can put a comment or put a question or put something, and they know they're not going to get judged. They're just going to have positive support. And we've had that quite a lot with the sort of group and the 45 Kings. And I know certain DJs will put, I'm not feeling it today, or I'm no good, or this. And again, the group comes together and says, you are good. Your last set was great, and sort of build with that. But yeah, community is really important, certainly now and going forward. Simon, coming back to the work that you do, again, tell us a tiny bit more about it. And obviously, you support quite a lot of the parents. How do they deal with it? Because it must be very hard for them, and their sort of mental health. And do you discuss mental health with them and support them and try and help them?
Yes, we do. It can be one of the recurring challenges for families with an autistic child is actually mourning the loss of their neurotypical child and welcoming into the home their autistic child there. And that can be quite difficult for parents. And I would say through my work, in particular dads as well, that it tends to be where a mum and a dad are at home, that mum will do a lot of the reading around autism, will be present for sessions with the child psychologist, the psychiatrists, and in most instances, certainly with the families that I've worked with, it tends to be the mum that accepts the diagnosis as part of their profile more readily than the dad. So I suppose because of my background in education and working closely with families, that we're allocated clients based on our requisite strengths and interests. And so we've got a number of other specialists within the team who are kind of considerably younger and funkier and more creative than I am, certainly. And so they go out and will skate together, paint together, go and visit cool places together. And I tend to work quite closely with the parents, which is absolutely fine. And it's a part of the role that I really enjoy. So it can be really, really difficult. And and as Dan has said quite rightly, the capacity to be able to actively listen, to really listen, so important. To listen without prejudice, to listen without making comment, but also as well to offer and provide reassurance as well. And actually for people to understand that a diagnosis is only a part of somebody's profile. And that's been something really significant for me. And I suppose in the past, what I've done when I've seen children in the past with learning difficulties, you can forget that the individual behind the learning disability, and actually for all of us, there are so many facets that make us who we are, and a diagnosis for something or other is only one part of that. So I was very much on that journey as a young teacher, and that's something that I speak to parents about as well, and actually say, look, you know, your child will love you. You'll love them. You can continue to have a really fulfilling and meaningful relationship with your child, as you've got every right to expect. It will practically be a bit different. Yeah. And my job is to kind of understand the nuances of the family, to understand the strengths, the interests and the challenges of that young person, and then look to make the connections, fuse together those connections, so that the family can function and have goals and do the things that they want to do. So it's a uniquely privileged role, because I'm invited into people's lives, into their homes. And more often than not, when I arrive, the young person is locked away in their room, inevitably accessing a huge amount of online gaming. So we've got to break some cycles and some behavior, because as we know that behavior is the language of emotion. So, and it can be difficult for parents to look beyond the behavior. And so, you know, that's the kind of work that we do, and actually say what we need to do is we need to get at the anxiety here, because the behavior that you're seeing comes from an emotional base. So once we address that, the emotion, then the behaviour will follow. So it's deeply rewarding work.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's also it's intense, but it also I've had some amazing sessions. I work with one young lad, and he's 11. He's absolutely brilliant, and I supported him into a special school, and we had one session together, and I arrived in his dining room to run the session, and all I could see was the dining room table, chairs, and then a bloody great washing machine box. And I thought, well, where is he? And so this young person was inside the washing machine box, and I conducted an hour-long therapeutic session with this kid inside the box, which was just magical. You know, he decided that today was the day he was going to spend inside the box, and I thought, well, how wonderful. And so
and I guess it's just getting on, and you know that's how you felt comfortable to communicate, rather than saying, right, you know, trying to force him out of the box or get him to, you know, do what you would expect him to do. Then and do you come in at an early stage, or once they've been diagnosed, or do you come in a lot later than they've been diagnosed? Or is it, because that must be the hard, well, I guess in one sense it must be a relief for the parents to know that, okay, we've got a diagnosis, we can now work with it. But then also it must be a bit of a, right, okay, my child's got autism, now how do we deal with it? So that must be quite an important tipping point, I guess, in the parent and the child's lives.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's interesting because we are for West Sussex and for Kent, we're the recognised autism support service. So we tend to go in where other services, particularly local authority or schools or healthcare, have been unsuccessful. So more often than not, the young people that I've worked with have been excluded, or they're refusing to go into school. So it's about getting them back on track. So it can. There are other families can buy the service in if they recognise they need some support, or social services, schools, hospitals, rehab centres can bring us in to support young people. The waiting list is huge, unfortunately, because so many families are struggling. The impact of COVID on the autism community has been significant, and I don't think we quite appreciate the depth of the challenge that faces us as a society. But the good thing is the team's growing, it's expanding. They're a wonderful bunch, and I think what families like is that we're a charity. So we recognise how important it is to take time. That progress is slow and incremental, we're not teachers, we're not social workers. I've been told by my boss that with some families I have to keep my past a secret.
Right. Okay.
That such has been the experiences that some families have had with schools.
Yeah, of course.
The fact that I'm a little bit like the what was this?
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just going to nip out quickly. Back in 2 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
No, I feel like the character in the most recent Star Wars film. He was a stormtrooper, and that Rey's mate. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I should know. Yeah.
Finn.
Okay.
Finn?
Finn. Yeah.
Yeah, Finn. Yeah, I've been described as Finn by one or two of the young people that I work with, because in their eyes, teachers represent the dark side, and that was my former life.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just going to put up a comment from Mark Lancaster. Big up, Mark. Interesting. Yeah. So he had a girlfriend with an autistic daughter, and the best way to have a relationship was not to treat anything she did out of ordinary. Ended up getting on famously for a while. His only male presence in life. She'd be 20 and I haven't seen the same, but I found my relationship incredibly rewarding. And I guess that's very true, isn't it? Because it's not. They're not. It's not to say that they're not normal when they're out of the ordinary. That's how they are. That's how. And we're all completely different. We're all completely individual. And there's no real normal anymore. But I guess I assume that resonates. Does it? You just treat them as you would any other kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mark absolutely nailed it when he said that we didn't treat anything as being out of the ordinary. Now, because autism is on a spectrum, that it comes in different shapes, sizes, and different flavors. It's not like other diagnoses where the profile is very similar. The challenge that schools have in particular is that one set of strategies that may work for child A won't work for child B. So the key is building up. A relationship, taking time to get to know that person, understand the nuances of their behaviour, look at their sensory profile as well, and look at how the environment that they're in affects their anxiety. And it can take a huge amount of time. And I often say to parents, sometimes it's best not to analyse. It's best just to deal with what you've got. and kind of roll with it. It can be exasperating at times, and it can be a real challenge, particularly when you've got a young person with an autism profile, just about to hit puberty or experiencing other traumatic events in their life as well. And I mean, sadly, what we know is that sort of 75% of autistic or people with an autism diagnosis have got mental health problems as well. And it can be really, really challenging for those young people. But you know, we do a lot of work on autistic celebrities as well. When we look at the numbers of sorts of hugely famous and successful autistic people, when we say, look, the challenges that you face, the anxiety that you're experiencing at the moment, these were common amongst all of these incredible people: Albert Einstein, Michael Palin, Lionel Messi, and you know, you'll get there, you know. And it's about you know, when it's about working alongside that young person and building resilience and equipping them with the strategies so that they can make those adjustments. They can dip into that tool bank when they're a bit older and a bit more independent. So it's about, you know, it's about being a good parent, I guess. So being a good human being, modeling good behavior. You know, and it comes back to what we were saying earlier on. You know, for us as men, it's so important for us to be talking like this, because you know, people need to sit. My kids need to sit. I've had to learn how to do it because it's not something that my dad did, and it's certainly something that his dad didn't do. So
certainly not. No, that's the thing.
It's on us if we don't model the sort of behaviour that we want our kids to see. We won't improve society for them, and we won't improve the communities that they live in. And it goes for everything, you know. You know, racism, homophobia, you know, it's you know, patriarchy, you know, all of this stuff. You know, we have to be, you know, we as middle-aged men, you know, we need to be setting the example here, because disproportionately people tend to listen to us, and we seem to hold power, which seems odd to me, but you know, that's the way that society is organized at the moment. And you know, we have a responsibility, I think.
That's very well said. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally agree with all of that. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
I think what you're doing is incredible.
Yeah,
just love you even more now.
Oh, Dan.
You called him handsome earlier, so
yeah.
But likewise though, mate, you know, I think when you believe in something, and when you genuinely believe that what you're doing is a good thing, it's so fulfilling, and it fills you with passion and energy, and you know, and I've seen that you know, working with you over the years with Dad La Soul and Top Rocking Beats, but also as well being a Dad La Soul punter as well, and so you know, and you know, and Criztoz as well. You know, you've driven this throughout lockdown, and you know, week in, week out, there's content there for people to get involved with, and I think it just goes to show what you can do if you find. If you light that fire, and you know, that's why it's so important to just check in with yourself and take stock every now and again and say to yourself, actually, you know, where are we here at the moment? You know, are there things within my power to change at the moment? If there are, brilliant, go for it. If not, well, I can't do anything about it now, but I will check in with myself again.
Yeah. I'm going to put another comment from Funky Flavors Lee. I think the perception is of Dustin Hoffman in Rayman. I've worked with many kids with autism, other disability attachment difficulties. Challenging, rewarding, exhausting, life-changing. Credit to you, Simon. So, that's great.
Funky Flavors, thank you. Yeah. But
it's and it's again we were talking about it with Richard Wilson when he was on, and you know, we've created this thing and Twitch and online, and part of it is that we're going out and we're doing real life gigs and all the rest of it, but there's a lot of people who can't get to gigs, so they're still going to watch stuff online, and so there is still something supporting for them, and for people in the chat and the community, and again that's why I do it, largely, it's the chat and the community and people watching and enjoying it. Right, let's move on to some music. So let's start with you, Dan. You've got, I don't know if they're 45s, but I think you certainly got three.
There wasn't. The thing is, you told me I had to pick 3, which was just impossible anyway.
It's very hard. I know it's a challenge.
It's just not happening, mate. Just not. I tried.
Well, it needs to be 4 or 5 and go for it. But what have you got for us?
They're different. So how do you want? Is this one at a time? All at once?
I'll just do one at a time.
Okay. Well, it starts off with that one, which is the 7-inch of Don't Believe the Hype, which is signed by Chuck.
Nice.
I bought that from Woolworths when I was about 14.
Yeah.
And it was just like most of us, I was a huge Public Enemy fan. But back in, the track's gone mad. 88, there was a big thing around Professor Griff, who was their Minister of Information at the time, and there was racism claims, and I thought, how can Public Enemy hate me because I'm white? And there was a lot of, misinformation across there. And I remember reading. I used to be constantly reading Enemy and Melody Maker on a Thursday morning. That was where you had Hip Hop Connection once a month, and there were some really good articles about primary information and getting to the source of the issue, actually not believing what you read in the press, and that always struck me as a child. And then 30 years later, I created my own PR company, and I was looking for a brand for it, and I tried. All the good names had already been taken. What did I went to my record box, flicked through it, found this little baby, and I thought, first-hand information, primary evidence, Don't Believe the Hype. What a lovely name for a PR agency. Launched it. A couple of weeks later, Public Enemy came to play Brighton, and for a good friend of mine, cyclist outside, Silverstone. The lovely Mark Colmer from Medina, who does all the Heroes tops. I got to go backstage and meet Chuck, and then that went on stage. So it's that's got a very special place.
Yeah, of course.
In my heart.
Good choice.
There's Reflection by Blade.
Yeah, your mate.
He's somebody I've known for probably 30-something years.
He did a podcast with him recently.
He did, yeah. He's got a fascinating backstory where he came over as on his own, basically, to school from where was he from? Oh, it escapes me. It's getting late. But he basically his family stayed in another country, and there's some. If you want to have a look, it's called Maybe I'm Just Like My Father. It's a series of podcasts that he did. But Blade, apart from being a lovely dude, he's very hardworking and very, very inspirational. And Reflection, is about looking at yourself in those very dark times, just thinking, I can do this. So when I feel a bit flat, I stick that on. And then there's.
I'm just going to. There's a question from Armand's. Is it your bad guts, that noise we keep hearing?
No, I wish it would. It's
it wouldn't surprise me. I've been in that office.
Well, if you've been in that office, you'll know it's just by a main road in the centre of town.
I know.
And the windows are open. And unfortunately, I have lots of boy racers and idiots coming out of the pub shouting.
Two good choices.
No, here he comes again. So he's racing around the town, probably showing off for his mates. But I'm not going to shut the window because it would just get too hot in it.
Yeah.
Next one is Long Time Gone by Galliano.
Okay.
Back in the day, I sort of lost in the early 90s. I gave up on hip hop. It didn't represent where I was coming from with the whole
right
gangster rap thing. I still liked, the late 80s stuff, but I lost its way and I found my way into acid jazz and soul and funk. So that's another tune that is, I don't know what the content is, but it makes me feel good. And it's still, 25 years later, still badass, still absolutely badass. And then there's just one more, which is this album, which is Changing the Scenery by Syndicate.
I don't know that one.
You don't. They were signed to Virgin. They were sort of ragga hip hop soul in the mid to late 80s. Just brilliant. They flipped the script on it. Really decent singing vocals. Crazy Noddy was a DJ. And there's Tell Me Why. If you want to go and check out Syndicate, listen to Tell Me Why. It's a beautiful, like, hip hop love song, and it was street soul. So with your Pintucks and your Patrick Ewings and dressing like a ragga man, even though we were white middle class kids, they were tunes to hit the dance floor to.
Well, Lee's definitely liking this, saying you're talking my language now. Fab band. Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was
selection.
hard, though. That was absolutely trying to go for
it's a little challenge. Yeah. I mean,
it's not a little challenge.
Simon, what have you got for us?
Okay. And it's before I do this, I just want to say that Dan and I didn't talk about selection beforehand, because some of the themes and indeed, you'll see in a minute, are worryingly familiar. So I've gone with three decades. So one of the first 45s I bought, and this is Wild Thing by Tone Loc. So 1988. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about being quite an ignorant, narrow-minded hip hop head back in the days, and I wanted Wild Thing. I can't remember how old I would have been in 1988. Not very old, but actually, it wasn't until several years later that I realised Wild Thing is the B-side, and actually the A-side, the far stronger track, is Locked After Dark by Tone Loc, which is Tone Loc at his absolute best. That beautiful kind of southern drawl of his, Delicious Vinyl were just top of their game back then in the late 80s. And of course, it's one of my favourite samples of all time. So Easing In, and it still sounds so fresh today. And I did, I was one of those DJs that never used to listen to B-sides, and it's foolish, stupid, because and actually the irony was that I was listening to the B-side and didn't actually check for the A-side. So just goes to show that
both sides of the 45. Yeah, the B-side always wins quite a lot of times. Actually, B-side for the win.
Well, as you know, Criztoz, all too well, given the price of 45s nowadays, you can't afford not to listen to the B-side.
I think unless you're a scratch DJ, it annoys me quite a lot when it's like you've got the instrumental on the B-side.
Oh, Criztoz.
Well, I do a bit of scratching, but I very rarely will play the instrumental. So it's like, for me, I'd rather have two tracks, because then you're getting value for money, like you say, especially nowadays. But
okay,
that's me.
No worries. So we jump into the 90s now, and I've also chosen a Public Enemy 45. So I've gone with Night Train, but specifically the Pete Rock remix. The album that this came from certainly wasn't a stellar Public Enemy album. Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Back. It was the beginning of a bit of a decline for PE for me, but this track was just made outstanding because of Pete Rock's remix and the James Brown get into it, get involved sample. It's just nuts. It's absolutely bonkers. Flav just loses the plot on it. Chuck does what Chuck does best, and then CL Smooth drops a verse on it as well, which is just magnificent.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's perfection, that track. And then Dan talked about falling out of love with hip hop in the 90s, which is interesting because I fell out of love with hip hop in the 2000s, in the noughties. So what I did is I chose this one from 2005, White Stripes, Doorbell, because really at about the time that this was out, the only hip hop that I was checking for was Jurassic 5, Ugly Duckling, DJ Format. There really wasn't much else going on for me. The Mark B and Blade album was a good album from that time for me. But I remember watching the Stretch and Bobbito documentary, and it was about the time that they went their separate ways, where Bobbito Garcia was getting into that whole kind of abstract hip hop kind of thing, Anticom Records, all that sort of stuff, and that just wasn't my scene. And then Stretch was deliberately playing sort of stuff by Mace and Puffy, and you know, it was the time when the Wu were on their kind of third album, and there'd been all sorts of dodgy follow-up albums with sort of solo members. I'd fallen out of love with Tribe Called Quest, and you know, I was really not checking for hip-hop at the time. But this track for me, I mean, it's one of those, I think wherever you are, whoever you're playing to, as soon as that drum break hits at the beginning, you just know that you're in a good time for the next 3.5 minutes. It's an absolute classic, and any chance that I get to play it, then I will do so. So 345, 3 decades, and
good choices. Very good. Right, where should I start? Okay, so again, I've sort of gone for tracks that, you know, I love, and you know, if you play them, people, you know, automatically know them and they bring back memories. And the first one is DNA, Tom's Diner.
Oh yeah, nice.
There you go. I mean, it's just a classic. And again, like you were saying, you know, as soon as you put it on and the first, you know, hear it, you know, it just brings back memories and good vibes, and it's, you know, it's one of those classics that you just never tire of listening to. And I think with music, that's part of what it's all about. And Mark knows it's a tune. Okay, the next one, and again another classic, and you know, there's a few remixes going around, but I think this is going to stand out forever. Eli, Groove is in the Heart.
I think I've got that on every format. I've got a 12, an LP. Yeah, I think
they did a record store day on the last drop or the drop before or something, but it's just the same thing again. Yeah. But again, it's just, you know, the sound, and you know, it's 20 odd years, 25 years old, but again, it's just it just makes you happy. You know, it makes me happy, and I think it does for a lot of people. And then the last one, this is going back a bit now, but it's just, I just remember the video and is sort of Mars, Pump Up the Volume. And you just remember the video with like the sort of, I think the space shuttle taking off and the numbers coming down.
It was Thunderbird, wasn't it?
This was number one for like a long time, wasn't it? I think from memory. And that sort of takes me back to my youth a little bit, you know. And it's all of those tunes are just tunes that are there in my sort of subconscious that, you know, you're going to listen to forever. And even if you drop them now, I think, you know, certainly some of those, the kids, you know, whoever the kids are these days, are going to be into them. And it's interesting how 90s is sort of coming round again. You know, 80s has had that, but so that's that. And then right, my favorite part of the show, I know you haven't got any, Dan, but you're going to talk to us about sweets.
Well, I'm not allowed sweets because I've got a big fat belly, and especially during lockdown, where I live on my own primarily for most of the week, doing having my son. So my hours contact that I was allowed out, I'd walk over to Marks and Spencer's to get, you know, a couple of Danishes, just so I could have a bit of human conversation with the girls behind the counter. I did that maybe a bit too much, should we say? So I'm rapidly trying to get rid of it and get rid of my. I think I've got a bit of a sweet tooth, and obviously you get older, we don't exercise as much, and that can have serious health consequences. So you talk about your low chocolate, I'll just look at you like I hate you, and it's fine. You know, I won't feel bitter about it.
Yeah, but what would you choose? What would you?
A bit of Twix. 1, 2. You said 3 confectioners of Twix, 1, 2, and 3. That's 6 bits.
Yeah,
you know, game over. You know, there's no flies on me, mate.
I do the long Twix. I don't know if they do them in 6-packs yet, but maybe they should.
Well, no, I could ruin that. I could absolutely ruin that with 1 cup of tea. So
the great thing about Twix is that it's one of those chocolate bars that consists of 2 distinct layers. So that means that there are 2 distinct eating experiences with them. So you can either eat it the traditional way, or you can top and bottom it, and you know, of which, you know, a double decker is similar.
Or you can stuff it down your face like a pig eating truffles, a bit like me, which is a third.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
that's not a pretty sight, is it? Sorry, boys.
Simon, what? I don't think you've got them, but again, you were going to tell us, or you were going to try and share your screen, but I don't think we quite got the tech working.
I've got 2. I'm going to try and post a picture of this one in the chat. Let me see if I can do it. Has it popped up? No. Okay. Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about is a product called Fluff. You probably know it, but it's marshmallow spread, and it's made in an American town in Massachusetts called Lynn, and I've got family that live in Lynn in Massachusetts, and Lynn is known for 2 things, one of which is serious crime, and the other is this marshmallow spread called Fluff, and it wouldn't surprise me if the 2 were inextricably linked in
somehow. You're really selling it.
But as a kid, members of my family used to come and visit us, and you know, as kids, chubby little kids, my brothers and I, we used to we just used to beg for them to bring this stuff over because it wasn't available in the UK at this time.
Yeah,
and so the idea is that you spread it. So it's marshmallow flavored goo, and you can spread it on a peanut butter sandwich. They use it to make whoopie pie as well. So it's a kind of an old Americana kind of classic, but it comes in a huge, great plastic jar. It's absolutely impossible to eat. The moment you open it, this stuff attracts whatever's floating in the air. It'll do untold damage to your teeth, digestive system, and your heart. But my God, it doesn't half taste good.
I think they sell it when Lidl do their American week. I think they occasionally, I've had that from there, but I've never spread it on anything. I've just like eaten it with a spoon out the
like ice cream.
Every day, you know, 1 spoon a day or so. But it's deadly stuff.
I'm going to say, from an ex-teacher's side, it will ruin your teeth, it will kill you, but it tastes good.
Well, you know.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Okay, and then the other one.
Good point. Hold on. Will it clean records? I don't know if anyone's tried that whole glue on records. It looks like very time consuming and like a ridiculous thing, but I don't think you'll get it off records if you put it on a record. No, it's not like that.
You could use it as a filling between 2 records.
Yeah, together.
Yeah. It'll bind people to walls. It's extraordinary stuff. So I've gone from the ridiculous to the king now. Sorry, Dan.
You are dead to me. You are absolutely. That is awful.
It's the unrivaled king of chocolate for me, for so many reasons. The flavor profile just can't be matched as far as I'm concerned. nougat or nugget, however you choose to pronounce it, sort of almond, honey, chocolate. It's just magnificent. And I made the mistake of telling the first ever class that I taught that I was into Toblerone. So at the end of that particular academic year, I got about 15 or 16 of these.
That's not a mistake.
No.
Better than hand-drawn pictures or like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Best teacher mugs or anything like that. But it just can't be beaten. And you know, one of my abiding memories of school residential trips to France, taking year 6s and year 7s out to France, was buying, you know, because there is a Toblerone bigger than this one, the gold one that you can sort of pick up on duty free. I mean, there was Toblerone controversy recently, wasn't there, where they chose
to say that. Yeah, they made it smaller or something, or thinner, or more.
Yeah,
space
they widened the gap.
Yeah.
So they made Toblerone look like a kind of a bike rack, and it had the impact of reducing the number of peaks and increased the amount of empty space, which was a bad thing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the gaps were bigger. That's it, Mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't beat it.
Have you had the sort of fake version from Poundland? I think it's called Twin Peaks, and it's not far off. And it's quite good, and I think they do a white version. I think there's a dark chocolate and maybe like a fruit and nut version as well. So they sort of bastardized it a little bit, but and it's only £1.
Really?
Much cheaper than Toblerone. So next time you're in Poundland, have a look for it. I think it's called Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks.
But I think, and Mark's fill the gaps with fluff.
Yeah,
that's a combination.
Oh, that's absolute.
That is a good combination.
Absolute diabetes. Right.
Any more, or is that your 2?
That's my 2. I went from the ridiculous to the sublime. The king, the undisputed king, Toblerone, undefeated in my view.
You were doing all these interviews, Si. You were doing so well, and then at last knockings.
You're not feeling Toblerone?
No, I'm not. Wrong on so many levels.
Really?
Yeah. You are dead to me, I told you.
Well, we should explore this, Dan.
We are not exploring the Toblerone. That's a whole different sort of video cast, isn't it?
I've gone sweets though, and I think there's probably a bit of a contradiction in term, but the sports mix.
Oh, okay.
I do like them, but obviously you do feel a bit of a fraud eating sweets that
are they just like funny shaped wine gums?
Yeah, they got a slightly different texture to sort of wine gums. Okay. They're a bit not tougher, maybe. I don't know, not as soft as wine gums. And then my daughter loves these, as do I. Is like pinballs.
Oh, I've not tried those.
Which are good. They're quite sort of chewy ones. And I haven't tried these, but I saw them in the shop, and I was like, they could be quite interesting because they bring back memories of the old advert. Now these are Werther's original creamy filled. And obviously it brings back memories of the Werther's original advert with the granddad. I remember my first Werther's original, my granddad passing me down the street or whatever. And I used to quite like Werther's, but I don't know about these, but they could be interesting. And they're 25% free. So
win-win.
It might be all right. They might be all right.
Something dodgy about granddad's creamy filling. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, this was back in the 80s, 90s. I think it was the 90s.
Acceptable.
That was acceptable back then. Certainly not now. Right. I think we're about there. Let me just have a quick check and see. We'll do a raid in a minute, see who's actually online. I can't see who's playing, actually. I can't seem to see it on my thing. Yeah, we'll go and raid someone in a minute once I find out who's online. Okay, Sam's online. Murati. Oh, we'll go to Japan, I think. We'll go and see Murati. Right. Thank you so much. Let me just set. Oh, not that one. I don't like that one. Let me just set the raid in motion, and then we can go from there. Trying to remember how to spell everyone's names. But yeah, thanks so much for coming along. It's been a great really interesting session. Thanks for giving up your time. Thanks for being open and honest
Pleasure.
and telling us about what's been going on. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Big up Armands, Funky Flavors, Mark Lancaster, and everyone else who's tuned in. We'll be back on this, where has it gone? Next Monday is 45 dubs. We're doing all 45 dubs and versions: Jazz Nasty, Nick Good Life, DJ Sweet 2, Dub Strong. I got a brand new talk show where I'm talking to Sideshow Mall, all Back to Mine. That's brand new. That's next Tuesday. And then Part of My Journey's back with Funky Flavors and Matt Love. That's on the 11th of October. Yeah, thanks very much. If anyone would like to talk about mental health issues, then you can contact various charities: Mind, Time to Change, Mental Health, Samaritans. Big up to both of you. Let me just get in here your details. I can find it there. So Dan, I've put up your links there.
Thank you.
And then Simon, we've got some links for you there if people want to get involved with Get It Together and your Instagram. So I'm just going to rate that. If you guys hang on there for a minute, we'll end the chat and go from there.